right, you guys, we are going to talk about absolute value real world scenarios. So when would we actually use these? First of all, let's just remind ourselves what absolute value is. Remember, this is the distance a number is from 0. Distance is always positive, right? You can't run negative 5 miles, so distance is always positive. So however far away a number is from 0, that's its absolute value, okay? So down here it says solve. This is the absolute value of 8. Remember those bars read as absolute value of 8. Sorry, negative 8. So if I put negative 8 on my number line and I saw how far away it is from 0, how many jumps? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 spaces away from 0. Doesn't matter which direction it's going, it is 8 spaces. 8 is the distance. So that is its absolute value. Absolute value must be used with all of the following words. So any of these sort of situations. Distance, we just talked about this. Distance is always going to be a positive number. Debt, the reason it's used with debt, so absolute value, i.e. a positive number, is because debt is already a negative word. So you wouldn't say a debt of negative $5 because those are like two negatives. That doesn't make sense. Same with depth. Depth is already a negative word. Depth means to go down, so you wouldn't say a depth of negative 5. Change is also always an absolute value word where it's always going to be a positive number. Change, remember, is just how far did it move from the original spot. So it doesn't matter if it went up or down, how far did it move? And then finally, owe. Owe is just like debt. If you owe someone money, you owe them $3. You don't owe them negative $3 because that would be backwards. So let's actually try it with some situations. So while skydiving, Miss Smith jumped out of the plane and fell 100 feet before opening her parachute. So they're asking us to do a few different things. First, they want us to write an integer to describe the situation. Remember, an integer can be a positive or a negative number. So if she fell 100 feet, fell means she went down. She descended, went down, so that would be negative 100. So our integer is negative 100 because she fell 100 feet. But then let's use it in a sentence. The distance that Miss Smith fell was positive 100. Okay? Because you're not going to fall negative 100. That would be like she was raising up, right? This word fell right here is already a negative word. So that takes care of that negative sign right there. Fell is your negative sign. That's why we don't have to also write the negative sign. Okay, so every time you're reading the sentences for the situations, look to see, is there a word that's already taking care of that negative sign for me? And in this case, fell is that word. All right, here's a new situation. Izzy jumps into her pool and swims down 10 feet. So what is the integer? Well, she went down, so negative 10. But then Izzy is at a depth of, well, she had a depth of negative 10 or a depth of positive 10. Well, depth is a negative word. There's your negative sign already, so she's at a depth of positive 10 feet. Think about it. When you look on the side of the pool, it doesn't say negative 10 feet. It says 10 feet because it's 10 feet down, 10 feet deep. Again, look for those words that tell you it's a negative already. The depth says negative. That's what depth means. All right, Jessica has no money, so she borrowed $5 from her friend for dance tickets. Let's write an integer to describe this. So this one's a little tricky because she borrowed the money, but that means that she's going to owe it back to her friend. She's going to have a debt to her friend. So she borrowed it. That means she's going to need to repay $5. So negative 5. The word borrowed, she's got $5 in her pocket now, but she needs to repay that. So that's why it's a negative 5. And then Jessica has a debt of $5. Okay, this is already a negative word. So there's our negative sign, and there's our positive $5. Again, absolute value is always used for debt because it's already a negative word, just like depth was, just like fell was. All right, Patrick borrowed $15 from his brother Mac. Same idea as the last one. Go ahead and see if you can write your integer. So again, borrowed sounds like a positive word because now he's got $15 in his pocket, but he's going to have to repay that. So it should be a negative 15. And then in our sentence, Patrick owes his brother how much money? Well, he's going to owe him positive $15. Again, owes is a negative word. This is our negative sign, and then there's our number. Absolute value is always used for owe because it's already negative. All right, new situation. Mindy's mom lost 10 pounds. Her dad gained 2 pounds. Okay, two different situations. So the mom lost 10, so negative 10. Dad gained 2, so positive 2. You don't have to put the plus sign, I just kind of am so I can see the difference for sure. Now let's look at the sentences. Mindy's mom's weight changed by blank pounds. Okay, it changed. Remember we said changed tells me just how far did something move from its original spot. Not did it go up or down, but how much did it move from there? Her weight changed by 10 pounds. Not because it went up or down, it doesn't matter. Just how far from its original spot did it go? Mindy's dad's weight changed by positive 2 pounds. So notice they're both positive here. Change is always positive because it's not asking if it went up or down. It's just saying from the original spot, how much did it move from there? How far did it change? Okay, there are times when we don't use absolute value. So here's a few examples. Temperature. You could say that the temperature is negative 32 degrees. That's fine. Okay, it can be a negative. Also elevation. This one's a little confusing because depth is a negative word, but elevation is kind of a neutral word where it could be positive or negative. So yes, you can have a negative elevation, like the elevation could be negative 27 feet. And that's just the same thing as saying below sea level. Okay, so the elevation and temperature are two times where you could have negative numbers. You don't have to use absolute value every time. So here's an example. Kenny fell 5 feet off the monkey bars. Okay, he fell 5 feet off the monkey bars. The integer that Kenny fell, let's see, was a negative 5 because he fell 5 feet. That's our integer. Kenny fell a distance of how many feet? A distance, he fell positive distance. He fell 5 feet. Again, fell and distance is telling me it's negative already. All right, real quick, let's just go through and mark these as absolute value or as negative situations. So when would we have to use absolute value? When would we just use negative? So debt. Debt is always going to be absolute value. Right? The word debt is a negative word, so we would use absolute value. Temperature, though, you could have negative. I'm going to shorten these just to A and N from here on. Depth. Depth is a negative word, so I would just use absolute value. O is also a negative word, so I would use absolute value. Distance is a word that is always going to be positive, right? You can't have a negative distance, so that's absolute value. Change is always positive. How far did it move from the original? Absolute value. And finally, elevation. This is a time where it could be negative. Remember, an example of that would be if something was below sea level. So if it's 5 feet below sea level, that would be negative 5 feet elevation. And that's about it, guys. So always just think, does this sentence have a negative word in it already? And if so, it's going to be a positive number for sure. Thanks.